Mr. Speaker, sir.
Please.
बहुत अच्छे। नहीं, मुझे हिंदी के प्रयोग में कोई मुश्किल नहीं है। मैं सिर्फ ये सोच रहा था, आपकी आवाज़ मैंने सुन ली, है। 1 minute.
Please, why are you making? There is a translation available.
1 minute.
No, you can't make a demand like that. No, Prime Minister will speak according to his choice of language. You can't demand for it.
They are demanding.
मैं कह रहा था अध्यक्ष जी कि मैंने आपकी आवाज़ सुन ली है और सुबह के मेरे बोलने के बाद मेरे मित्र मुझे मिले भी थे। उन्होंने इस बात की सराहना की थी कि मैंने इस पद से पहली तकरीर जो की है वो मैंने हिंदी में की है। हिंदी मेरी मातृभाषा मेरी भी है, मैं भी उसी ज़ुबान में पला हूँ और उसी संस्कृति की नुमाइंदगी मैं भी करता हूँ जिससे ये भाषा पैदा होती है। हमारे देश में भाषा बाहरों से नहीं आई थी कभी, चाहे बात हिंदी की हो चाहे बात उर्दू की हो, इसी धरती से पैदा हुए थे। और इसलिए जब मैं वो भाषा बोलता हूँ जो आम आदमी समझता है तो मैं ना पंडित हूँ, ना मैं ज्ञानी हूँ, ना मैं मौलवी हूँ। मैं तो सिर्फ एक बात समझता हूँ, ये कि इस पद से जो भी बोले, चाहे वो किसी भाषा में बोले, उसकी लाइन ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन अपने लोगों के साथ होनी चाहिए। मैं अंग्रेजी में इसलिए बोलने की कोशिश कर रहा था कि हमारे देश में बहुत लोग ऐसे भी हैं जो आज भी हिंदी को नहीं समझते, और क्योंकि मैं यहाँ से बात कर रहा हूँ और सुबह मैंने हिंदी में जिक्र किया था, अगर आप इजाज़त दें तो मैं इस वक्त अंग्रेजी में बात कर लूँ ताकि उन लोगों से भी मेरी बात हो। Mr. Speaker, sir, when I rise this evening to continue what I had submitted to the House this morning, seeking its confidence, I was not in a mood to defend or offend anybody. That was not my purpose. My purpose basically was that we in this House should look at my commitments that I was trying to make in the morning itself. The debate as it's developed has highlighted two things. One, that I am grateful to all sections of the House that they have tried to mention my name in the words for which I am grateful. And therefore that induces more humility in me. And therefore when I speak from this seat and when I look down on the seat, there are 3 plaques shown there. One of them says, Jawaharlal Nehru sat here. There is one more plaque, it says, Indira Gandhi sat here. There is third one which says, here Lal Bahadur Shastri also sat here. And when I look at their names, I find myself very small person. I must find myself very humble person. But I think I am grateful to you that you have honored me. But the more you honor me, the more humble I feel. जिसे हिंदी में निम्रता कहते हैं। मैं निम्र से बात करता हूँ और निम्र से बात करते हुए ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि जो वादे मैंने सुबह किए थे उन वचनों पे कायम रहना चाहता हूँ। अब दूसरी बात आने से पहले ये बात साफ कर दूं कि मैंने सुबह से एक बात शुरू की थी, and I have said I am speaking on the 50th year of Indian independence. This 50th year is not numerical only, because everybody adds years. You can't stop that process. Whether we think in terms of individual's age, or we think in the terms of growth of a nation, or we think in terms of development of history, there are certain factors which are beyond us, and adding years is one of them. So therefore, but when we look at the 50 years, I think as a nation we owe to ourselves, and I mean all sections of ours, not me only. We owe this over to ourselves to look back and also look forward. When we look back, I reminded in the morning to my friends that we look back with a great deal of pride not only me, not only the friends who are sitting here, but all the house, we look with pride the legacy of the freedom struggle. That freedom struggle was not fought by one individual. It was not fought by one particular party. Although Congress was a name, but Congress was a platform. And Congress was a bigger dimension than the party spirit that we think of today. I do not know how many amongst us are in this house those who remember that tradition. When Congress was not only spelling out that why it was resisting and fighting colonialism, it was also spelling at the same time the future of India. I think our freedom struggle was unique in one sense, which I cannot think of any other freedom struggle in the world, that while fighting, while struggling, while resisting imperialism, we were spelling out the future of India. The forefathers, or the founders, or whatever you might call them, call it Mahatma Gandhi, call it Jawaharlal Nehru, call it Sardar Patel, call it Maulana Azad, or whatever, numerical numbers. They spelled out for us what shall be the shape of India. The Constitution of India is not only a document, it is not only a book, although we take pride in saying that the authorship of this to a large extent is due to the contribution made by Baba Sahib Ambedkar. But it spelled out those very promises which the freedom struggle had made. One promise was democracy. Second promise was unity of India, and also unity of a diverse India. This promise was made by saying that we, as I said in the morning in the Hindi, that we belong to different religions. We have different ways of life. We speak different languages. Yet we are one. Freedom struggle unified us. And that is one of the things which freedom struggle gave us. It also gives a liberal outlook, as my friend Chidambaram was saying. Liberal outlook was not spelled out by me, or by college, or by the school where I went. Liberal attitude was given to me by those who were leading the freedom struggle. They said, unless your mind is open, unless your heart is open, unless your outlook is wide, unless your vision is wide, you can never lead India. And that is what we have tried to follow. And that has been the legacy of India. And therefore, I only promised myself to you, and that was that if by chance of history, or by whatever luck you might say, if I have been called upon to sit here, I want to uphold that legacy. That legacy also is also spelled out the postulates of India of future. And India of future has made many promises. As I said, it made also promise to those who go by the name of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. First and foremost, I remember I was a younger man, and many of you might have been younger men, when freedom struggle was going on, Gandhiji went on an epic fast. Why did Gandhi fast? And even Jawaharlal Nehru wrote an article on that night. And I remember that article. Jawaharlal thought at that time that Gandhiji was derailing the freedom struggle. He said perhaps he was defocusing the issue from the main struggle to other side. He went on a fast to emphasize one thing, that every human being has a right to go to a temple of his choice. And he fasted. And he was going to die. And that was the spelling of Gandhi. That is when Gandhi became Mahatma. And that is what elevated him. And when he elevated himself, he saw the misery of the man who was denied the entry to a temple. And he saw the humiliation of that man. He saw the indignity of that man. And when he saw the indignity and humility of that man, he said, I would rather lay my life for this, till he entered the temple. Gandhiji himself never went to get to temple. He was a religious person, but not temple-going type. He was not a revivalist. He was not an obscurantist. He was one of the most modern men in our history who was ever born. He transformed our social thinking. I remember again, if I may turn slightly autobiographical, when my mother first went to jail, sir, for the first time, my grandmother wept and wept for days. And she said, I am not crying because my daughter has gone to jail. I cannot show my face to my village because they will say, your daughter has gone to jail. Gandhi turned into a dignity. Going to jail became an emblem of dignity. He turned our values. And that is what the value he turned was, please treat human beings as human beings. We may be Muslims, we may be Hindus, we may be, I don't want to spell out the castes. There are several. Yet that unity of India. Unity of India will never be physical unity. You can unify the nation not in terms of making a constitutional or laws here. You can unify the hearts. My friends there were asking about the status of Muslims. Some friends have been asking about the status of Sikhs. Some have been asking me about status of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes. They all represent human beings. They all represent aspirations. They all represent their stake in this nation. Unify them and India is unified. Divide them and India is gone. What are we discussing today? We are trying to define secularisms. We are trying to define thisism and thatism. Are we writing a thesis for doctorate? Are we going to Harvard University to tell them how we look at that? We spell it out in terms of our own experience. We spell it out in terms of our social reality. We spell it in terms of our legacy. If these three things are kept in mind, then everything falls in old place. We may differ in this house. I have respect for Atal Bihari Vajpayee beyond my words. He was foreign minister, I was his ambassador. I know his value system. I know what he believes in. And what I know, I respect him for that. There can be difference of opinion amongst us, and that is what democracy is about. If there is no difference of opinion, then what can one do? Of course, Sushma Swaraj is sitting there. She is very eloquent. I don't know how to reply it. Only that one couplet of Urdu comes to my mind. तुम मुखातिब भी हो, करीब भी हो, मैं तुमको देखूं कि तुमसे बात करूं. This is the situation. But all the same, I think now we have come to a stage when I think we have to look in terms of several things. In the morning, sir, I had said and talked about the security of India. We know a massive nation like Soviet Union collapsing. We have seen it. Why did it collapse? And I think Atalji should tell us more than I can even. I have lived in that society for 5 years, which looked very durable, which had all the tanks, which had all the planes, which had everything, and it collapsed. Internal security was not there. People had lost faith in that internal thing. I went there recently, and I was asking one of my old friends of those days, who even now occupies a very important position in the present system. I asked him, I said, I wonder, I lived here for 5 years, everything looked fine, then what happened? This gentleman, I don't want to name him because he might feel embarrassed there. He said, I can tell you only one thing. We never had a state, we had a party. And when party collapsed, the state collapsed. And that is what we want to avoid here. We do not want to make a situation where state is not more important than anything else. State is a supreme, and state does not belong to a single party. State does not belong to a single ideology. State does not belong to a single religion. State does not belong to a single caste. State belongs to all of us. And state of India, the glorious state of India, the great state which has survived, will survive if all of us place faith in that. Now state speaks through the people. State always speaks through institutions. Judiciary is one of them. And if we make promise to the judiciary and don't fulfill it, state is harmed. Let us not do it. State also speaks through this house. And if we don't really spell out and also respect them, then state we cannot hold my hand. Rashtrapati cannot get me arrested. But state gets damaged. And when state gets damaged, I think the future gets damaged. State also gets damaged when many people lose faith in it. They get damaged when a young man is unemployed in the street. He loses faith in the state. First in the government, then in the state. Government he can remove by vote. State he can only undermine. And therefore undermining process has to be stopped. And when we talk of secularism, or we talk in terms of having some sort of a unity amongst us, we want to safeguard that. And that is again one of my commitments which I would like to fulfill. I would also like to say at the same time that in this country there are several dimensions of our social life. We always take pride in the fact that farmers in this country matter. Yes, they do. And that is why Lal Bahadur Shastri the Great said Jai Jawan and Jai Kisan. He meant something by that. It was not a mere slogan. He was spelling out India. And he knew that India meant these two segments of society particularly. I commit myself to that. I commit myself also to I commit myself to all those issues which again spell out the policies. Atalji rightly said, and I agree with him, and I want to endorse it. Why has our foreign policy succeeded? It has not succeeded because I am a clever man. It has not succeeded because Jawaharlal Nehru spelled out. It has succeeded because when Atal Bihari Vajpayee sat here, he said the same thing. When I sit here, I say the same thing. And when anybody else, and Narasimha Rao ji is there, when he sat here, he said the same thing. Chandrasekhar sat here, and he said the same thing. That is India. That is why India's foreign policy is succeeding. We can differ in details sometimes. We can differ in drafting sometimes. But consensus basically means we uphold it. Why did Narasimha Rao ji send Atal Bihari Vajpayee year after year after year to United Nations? Why did Narasimha Rao ji depute me to human rights commissions when we were confronted by a neighbor whose name I don't want to mention? Because he wanted to give a message which every Prime Minister must give, and I will continue to give, that whenever we go abroad, we are one. And we represent India. We do not represent parties. We do not represent differences. We represent unity of India. And that is why, if it is my good luck to sit here, and when the next session of United Nations comes, Atal Bihari Vajpayee will still lead that delegation, because he does it so well. And I am impressed by his performance. Not only that, he is a high-statured man. We in India take pride in this. And I think that is our pride. Our pride is whether Narasimha Rao ji sit here, or my friend Chandrasekhar sits there, or my friend Sarad Pawar sits there. Ultimately, when we go abroad, as Churchill once said, I shall never criticize my nation abroad. I shall never spare it internally. And therefore, that is how we proceed. And that is what the basis on which we want to build. I wanted to have lofty notes that as every Prime Minister has from the departments. And sir, you know you have been minister yourself, and you know that neither you drafted nor I drafted. These notes come. And I could have spelled out and taken this time to spell out the details of policy. I know its time is up. I will not take your time and bore you. But I'll take your time next week when we discuss budget. Because that will be the time for me to spell out details of policy. Today, let me only spell out postulates and caution the nation only on one thing, on two things. And again I resort to Urdu when I say, Iqbal had once said, आईने नाव से डरना, तर्ज़े कोहन पे अड़ना, मंजिल यही कठिन है कौमों की जिंदगी में. And this is the difficult moment for us. And that difficult moment we can transcend, bypass, sail through, swim through, collectively, together. Otherwise, in our history we have seen moments, and then if those moments we had not made mistakes, we perhaps would not have suffered. Again, let me conclude by again drawing your attention to another Urdu couplet which said basically that वो वक्त भी देखे हैं तारीख की राहों ने लम्हों ने खता की थी सदियों ने सजा पाई. I do not want the nation to be punished. I commit myself only to one thing, and that my commitment is born out of my faith in this nation, and that commitment is born out of my faith in the legacy of this nation, and that commitment is born out of my fundamental faith in that trust which Nehru promised. He did not spell out for himself. He was promising for all of us. He was promising for generations to come. And I think if the burden has come on us now to spell out and see, as they say 2020, the vision of 2020, not only in terms of years, but also the vision. 2020 eyesight is always a good eyesight. Without sweat, I wear glasses, but this is anyhow, I'll try to wear them It's so far as the political vision is concerned. And all of us, please, let us, we can differ. Sometimes we can disagree. Sometimes we can disagreeably disagree. But let us all the same time preserve this fact that in this 50th year of Indian Republic, what India we want to build. And I think there, not only in this house, I promise you one thing. I will try to continue practicing the type of consensus that I try to practice, and I'm glad Atalji appreciated that in the foreign policy. I think on that consensus basis, I am sure we all can be proud of India in the coming year. Thank you, sir.